Dune, Part 2 featured a major mistake in handling Florence Pugh's mistake, but Dune 3 already has the perfect way to fix it. Florence Pugh's Princess Irulan is one of the most notable new additions in Dune, Part 2, with her being the daughter of Emperor Shaddam Corrino IV and one of the most powerful characters in the Dune universe. Although Pugh's role in the final product may have left fans wanting more, Denis Villeneuve's next Dune sequel has the chance to fix things, with the perfect plan to redeem this Dune, Part 2 character already being set in motion. Dune, Part 2 is finally here, with the highly anticipated sequel to Denis Villeneuve's acclaimed adaptation of the beloved Frank Herbert sci-fi novel rounding out the story of the original Dune book. The ending of Dune, Part 2 follows a similar path to the book, with Paul Atreides leading the Fremen into a holy war that will span the galaxy, shedding blood on many different planets as they take on the houses. While this is the conclusion of the first book, there are still plenty of Dune books to be adapted, and up next is the iconic sequel Dune Messiah. Dune 2 gives Florence Pugh a surprisingly small role. Princess Irulan doesn't have much to do in Part 2. Florence Pugh is one of the most popular actresses of the past few years, with her addition to the cast of Dune, Part 2 being big news for fans. Florence Pugh has already made a place for herself in some major franchises, with her playing Yelena Belova in MCU projects like Black Widow, Hawkeye, and the upcoming Thunderbolts movie, while also appearing in major roles in films like Don't Worry Darling, Little Women, Oppenheimer, Midsommar, and more. Thus, Pugh was a big get for Dune, Part 2, with viewers expecting her to play a big role. Despite Florence Pugh's massive star power, the character played a surprisingly small role in Dune, Part 2, to the disappointment of many fans. As Princess Irulan, Pugh only appeared in a few scenes throughout the film, with most of them revolving around her secretly pulling strings back on the Emperor's homeworld. Irulan doesn't even interact with the main cast of Dune, Part 2 until the very end of the film, when the Emperor arrives on Arrakis. Even then, Pugh's role in the scene is small compared to characters like Paul, Chani, and Phaedratha. Florence Pugh will have a much bigger role in Dune 3. Denis Villeneuve has confirmed Princess Irulan's greater importance. Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan looking captivated in Dune Part 2 exclusive header. Although the actress role in Dune, Part 2 is pretty small, Florence Pugh will have a much bigger role in Dune 3. This has already been teased by director Denis Villeneuve, with him explaining that Irulan's character will soon become one of the most prominent characters in the franchise. Villeneuve explains that Pugh knew about this minimal role when she first signed on, with the actress understanding that her role will be greatly expanded on if a Dune Messiah movie happens as Villeneuve hopes. Villeneuve even compared Florence Pugh's role in Dune, Part 2 to Zendaya's role in the first Dune. Zendaya's Chani debuted in the first Dune and was a heavily advertised part, but Chani didn't really appear in the film until Paul meets the Fremen at the very end of the movie. Chani then became one of the main characters in Dune, Part 2. Villeneuve believes that Florence Pugh's Irulan will follow a similar path, with her being introduced in Dune, Part 2 before becoming a main character in Dune Messiah. What happens to Princess Irulan after Dune 2? Here's what the books reveal about Florence Pugh's character. Princess Irulan becomes one of the franchise's main characters after the events of Dune, Part 2, and here's what happens to her. At the end of Dune, Part 2, Paul marries Florence Pugh's Princess Irulan, with both of them realizing that the marriage will help consolidate their power. In the books, Irulan believes that her child will maintain power over the universe if she marries Paul, leading her to stick with the plan. However, their marriage becomes unhappy, with Irulan realizing that Paul doesn't love her. Although Paul is married to Irulan, Paul actually loves Chani, with Chani being the only one to have Paul's children. This leads Irulan to poison Chani, and although it kills her, it doesn't do so until Chani has 2 children. These 2 children are Paul's heirs, with Irulan deciding to watch over them due to her guilt over Chani's death. This storyline means that there is a lot for Irulan to do in Dune 3, fixing Florence Pugh's sidelining in Dune, Part 2.